Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's at 10:03 sharp. We want to give it just a few more minutes for people to join in. We understand today is a public holiday in Uganda. We currently have 15 people on the call. We're expecting quite a number of people. So if it's okay with everybody, we'll just hold for maybe say another 3 or so minutes to just have more people coming. We can see some people coming in, and then we can kick it off with a round of introductions. Good morning once again. We can see the numbers are rising, so we are prepared to start, and those who join in will catch up as we go along. But thank you very much for making time to be with us this morning. My name is Stephen Kimenye, and I lead the programs team here at Global Compact Network Kenya, and we're happy to support you in Uganda today through our ESG Masterclass, specifically tailored for Uganda's business environment, noting that we have, very closely shared environment as East Africa countries, but we are going in a deep diving to look at what is relevant for Uganda for you to know. This is a beginner's masterclass, so we are happy to be with you this morning. I'll give an opportunity for my colleague to introduce himself.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Yvonne Yarina. I support in participant engagement here at the Global Compact Network Kenya. It's a pleasure to have you all on the call, and we look forward to a fruitful session and an engaging session. Everyone.
All right, thank you. So as we go through the beginning of this, just some housekeeping rules. Please ensure that your microphones are muted when you're not speaking. This session is being recorded, and we will share the recording to you thereafter. Should you have any questions as we are going through the presentation, please feel free to type them into the chat. We are constantly monitoring that so that we can give you a better experience and respond to them as we go along. We will also have a dedicated Q&A session towards the end of this. So looking forward to hearing your feedback, and let's make this as interactive as possible. So you know us, we are seated in front of you. We have one of our colleagues who is online. I'll ask you, Damaris, to introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Damaris. I am the Communications and Marketing Manager at Work.
Fantastic. Thank you, Damaris. At this point, I would like us to also give an opportunity to those who are here, seeing as we're not too many, just to introduce ourselves so we can get to know each other as we go along. So please feel free to unmute your microphone and introduce yourself. Maybe I'll give it some order so that we can go through this systematically. I'll start with, I hope I pronounce it properly, Pius Akeka. Just to say your name, your role, and your organization so we know who's in there. Thank you. Pius, you're on mute. Oh, the mics are disabled. So that gives 1 minute.
As they fix the mics, let me introduce myself. I'm Lorraine Kethenji, part of the programs team. Happy to be here.
I will also take this opportunity to introduce myself. So my name is Mary Wawero, and I'm also part of the participant engagement team. It's a pleasure to meet with all of you. Thank you for coming out and joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Just that's for 1 minute as we resolve this.
The mics should be accessible. Maybe someone could try.
Yep, I think they're working. I'd like to introduce myself as we proceed. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes, Lorna.
Fantastic. My name is Lorna Solopian. I work for Pearl Dairy Farms Limited, also known as Lato Milk. I'm the General Counsel. I sit in Nairobi, with our main factory being in Uganda. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you, Lorna. We'll come back to you, Pius. Pius, you are okay.
Hello, how are you? Hope you're well. My name is Ronald Mayanja Omugalanda. I'm a consultant with the Federation of Ugandan Employers in Uganda, and I'm happy to be part of this particular program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. We can go to Alex Kafuku.
Great. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Alex Kakuku. I'm a founding partner at Geotropic Consults, a member of the UN Global Compact, and we are based out of Kampala here in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome again. We move on to Adrian up here.
Hey everybody, John Adrian Opio here. I work for Lato or Pearl Dairies here in Mbarara, and privileged to be joining you up and be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome, Adrian. Next, Eugene.
Eugene with Jubilee Insurance in Uganda.
Welcome, Eugene. We'll go next to Isabella. Isabella, if you are not available, you can just type your name and organization in the chat box. Next, we go to Lorna Solopian.
I was the first to introduce myself.
Oh, sorry, Lorna. Great. There we go. Pooja. All right, Isabella, AYO Insurance Brokers, we know that. Thank you. Pujan, if you're unable to unmute, you can also just type your name and organization. And next, we have Ratan and then Rona. Ratan from Amos Dairies, welcome. Ronald Mayanja.
Ronald introduced you.
And then, oh, sorry, you already introduced yourself. And then there's a Ronald Mania.
Good morning. This is Ronald Mini from Somoken Uganda Limited, Kampala, Uganda. Thank you.
Welcome, Ronald. Next, we have Weisma Nehemiah. Okay, Weisma, you can also just type your name and organization in the chat box. William, thank you for also typing your name and organization in the chat box. Welcome. And I think we have William Wangi and William Tembo. Rona, GTU, welcome. And also we note, Pooja, you also indicated CBSL. We'll not take a note of that. So thank you again and welcome all once again. Sincere apologies to my team. I had missed 3 people to introduce themselves, but we're glad that I was able to find that opportunity to do so. So we'll proceed with the presentation. We intend to be here for about 1 hour, an hour and a half to prepare for discussion points that we'll have. So we'll proceed with today's agenda, which is looking really at the changing business landscape from a sustainability perspective. So looking at Uganda, but also what's happening in East Africa that is of relevance for you to know as a beginner in sustainability. So we'll talk about this without too much ESG jargon. We'll capture those in upcoming masterclasses. Thank you, Waiswa. We've noted that. And also look at a bit of what the regulatory environment looks specifically for you in Uganda. Go through a bit of some sectors that are key and where we have information on, and also have some discussions with you on some of the trends that are happening from a sustainability lens and see how we can support you. We'll also go through a bit of the UN Global Compact introduction, just to take you through our values and our principles, and we'll close off with looking at practical first steps that you can take coming out of this meeting. So, like I mentioned, what you will expect is no jargon and really just practical first steps and sort of like a state of play, what's currently happening in this current environment. So what's different is that we have spent time to understand your market and to tweak this and tailor it and make sure that it speaks to the challenges that are both relevant for you in Uganda and in East Africa, and of course discuss some shared pathways for capacity building, both as individuals or professionals, as well as the organizations that you work for. So why are we having this discussion? Why are we all here on the call today? Why is ESG a topic of discussion? And it's really speaking to what we are calling the new business reality, a change from what used to happen before, which was a lot of voluntary type work that's approaching, that was, angled towards sustainability, to creating more structures around it. Yeah, this is coming out from pressures that are external to the organizations, be it from our buyers. They're asking for more transparency our financials are asking to see where, how to see how you are prioritizing sustainability within your operations. Your costs also internal to your organizations, those are also driving some of these pressures where sustainability is becoming more clearly understood that it is a profitable endeavor for the organization. And also the regulators. So whether we are looking at international regulators or local regulators, they all are putting pressure on the private sector to develop processes and strategies that drive sustainability within the organization. Beyond that, we know it is the right thing to do. And our focus is to demonstrate here that beyond the right thing to do, this makes commercial and business sense for the organization. So how should you be thinking about ESG? And this is just a simple decision lens that you can apply as practitioners. It's not a checklist. Yeah, it's really how you react in a structured way, and it's not necessarily just reacting, but also being proactive. Yeah, noting that there are different pressures that are affecting. That are placed on the organizations, be it, like I mentioned, the external pressures from the regulators, or your financials, or your employees, or your community that you serve, and also ensuring that you're creating a balance between the pressures and the risks, knowing what are the risks of not operating in a sustainable way for your organization. And also, what are the opportunities that exist for you as you transition to more sustainable operations and practices within your organization? And so it's more like a change. So you see the external pressures, as you assess them, you look at the risks and the opportunities that apply to those different scenarios, and then structure your organizational response to them, which will typically be a restructuring of organization policies and controls, looking at how you capture information and how you report it, and also what targets are you setting as an organization to sort of move better or move faster towards where you need to be. So majority would be familiar with this slide, which is ESG and its pillars, so we'll go through it fairly quickly. So sustainability is understood by most businesses as ESG, a framework for managing considerations around the environment, the society, and governance as you make decisions for your business. So we always say profit, people, and planet. Good for profit, good for people, good for planet. So the environmental aspect looks at the planet and its resources. How are we using them to ensure that we are not depleting these resources, and that we are living a better world for tomorrow? And also, within our organizations, how are we leveraging on these resources to drive greater efficiency and effectiveness of the work that we are doing? From a social perspective, we're looking at both internal to our organization. How are we treating our people? How do we treat our employees and staff within the organization? We look at their labor rights, we look at diversity and inclusion, health and safety, but we also look externally from our organization. What is the impact we have on the people that we serve through the products or services that we offer, and also through just by the virtue, the simple nature of our operations? How are they affecting the communities around us? Internally, from a governance perspective, we look at ethics and accountability. How involved is your leadership in the decision-making around ethics and accountability? What are the procedures in place that govern anti-corruption, data protection, transparency, and all these other governance topics that we will dive deeper as we go through this presentation. So this is just a framework through which we understand the business decisions that we need to make. If you recall, in the two previous slides, we had said we first look at the external pressures. After the external pressures, we look at the risks and opportunities, and then make business decisions based on that analysis. So this is the framework through which we will make those decisions. So what does the environmental pillar look like in practice? So, and this is applicable to both Uganda and East Africa. Of course, here we have specific references to Uganda regulations, but this generally cuts across our East African community and globally, easy to say. And the focus of environment, as you'd see in most conversations, is always around GHG emissions management or management of pollution. How do we prevent pollution? How do we manage our waste? How are we adapting as the world is changing? Climate change is real. We know the science. Climate change is real. For the Ugandan context, as far as the environment is concerned, there are regulatory framework that's anchored in your NEMA Acts of 2019. You also have other acts around biodiversity, climate-related matters, the Climate Change Act. All of these are strengthening the specificity of the requirement that is placed upon business as far as sustainability is concerned. And the actions and decisions that we need to make as a business are speaking towards the risk, opportunities, and pressures that we are seeing. So if you're looking at it from an energy lens, where do we start by understanding where we are, what is our current energy or fuel consumption? Is it sustainable to operate in this way? What do we need to do to change? What targets are realistic for us to place in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term, that help us bridge the gap between where we are and what is required by regulations and by the science that we know guides these regulations. Some quick wins that we have seen under the environment pillar in practice for organizations is do an audit. The audit clearly demonstrates to you where you can generate savings, be it from something like changing your power from the grid power to solar generated power, looking for more ways to integrate renewable energy into your organization. How are you managing your waste? How do we print, as simple as that, within our organization? How do we recycle our print paper? Do we have someone to come and collect it? Some of these, of course, depend on the physical, nature of your operations, whether you are working from an office or you're working from home, or whether you own your own building or whether you are letting. Some of these decisions are easy to do, but I always say switch off the lights. Switching off the lights when you don't need them is a very easy way of reducing your energy consumption and starts putting you on that journey. But the most important thing is to track the metrics, track these decisions as you're making them within the organization. Utilize frameworks that allow for easy data capture so that you can deliberately show where you are and the progress that you're making as you go along the path. Because this also motivates progress within the organization, but also gives credibility to the conversations that you have with your external stakeholders who are placing these pressures on your organization. If I go to the social pillar, like I mentioned, this is about how do we take care of the people within our organizations and those outside our organization, be it from the work conditions, how do we approach, equity, gender, personal development of our staff, and how do we ensure that our business and operations have meaningful community impact. I like to always mention that there's a reason why business exists, and business exists to solve a problem, and a problem being faced by people. So we must always make sure that as we are solving this problem, we're not creating other problems for those who are perhaps not the direct beneficiary of the products or services within our organization. Just as with the environmental pillar, in Uganda, this is governed through the relevant institutions such as the Ministry of Gender, Labor, Social Development, that give us guidelines and laws on how to manage, labor disputes, worker welfare, how to approach conversations around occupational health and safety. And this means just strengthening and tightening the systems that you already have. Or formalizing them is a very good first start. We find that a lot of businesses, SMEs particularly, do not have formal processes around protection of their social capital. So if you don't have contracts, putting them in place is both a sustainable way to operate for the business, as well as security for those who are employed within your organizations. Putting in place systems around how to address grievances. How do people feel free to speak up about challenges that are happening within our organizations without fear of reproach? Fear of consequences of speaking up. Some simple business actions, like I mentioned, just formalization. And then beyond beyond broad policy statements to start honing down on very, very specific policies within the organization. So you can have a human resource policy. If you have that in place today, it's now to break it down more and create more information around what is our policy specifically about health and safety, or our policy around gender equity, or our policy around pay and decent pay. Occupational health and safety basics, again, that's a very quick win for many organizations, just to make sure that there are conversations happening within the organization. And sometimes we think in an office there are no safety concerns, but even just simple things like how do we ensure there are no cables moving around so that people don't trip? How do we ensure that people know what to do with paper cuts? Because paper cuts happen in the office. So very simple actions can be taken by the business, but the idea is to be deliberate and proactive and not necessarily reactive. And where one is reactive is to ensure that we don't miss those opportunities to change something when we see something wrong happening. For those that are Global Compact participants, participating in capacity building initiatives such as the Gender Equality Accelerator within our organization supports you in understanding how to baseline the organization, how to identify where I am and where I need to be and what to do in between. Please feel free to drop any questions that you're having in the chat box. We're actively monitoring that as we go along. Next, we move to the governance pillar. Like I mentioned, what's happening with our leadership? We say the tone is set at the top. Here, for those that are lakeside, you see the fish rods from the head. So the focus here is how do we ensure that our leadership within the organization is driving this initiative for our organization. So as we have this discussion, some of us here are founders, some of us here are practitioners. How are we engaging with our leadership? How is our leadership giving us direction on how to approach some of these issues? And the idea is to always have an open communication channel between technical personnel as well as the leadership. But a lot of onus is placed on the leadership. We eat a board. If you're a large organization, a board, even SMEs have boards, or just the CEO of an organization. How aware are you about sustainability issues? How much are you investing as a business professional in understanding how to guide your business along this journey of ESG? So here you have also governance regulation that comes out from, CMA or the Bank of Uganda or Data Protection Office to deal with those different pillars that I had mentioned earlier around transparency, around data protection, around sector supervision. So you can see sectors like maybe say in financial sector have a lot of, scrutiny in terms of where money is going. You have other sectors that also have significant amount of scrutiny. And this matters because it generates investor confidence. And here we're getting investor or even the banks, the people who supply us with the capital or resources that we need to grow and expand our business. The data is what is the most important. It also supports us in regulatory compliance. Avoiding fines is good for our bottom line. Regulatory compliance gives us those licenses to operate within our jurisdiction. We also protect our reputation by avoiding scandals that destroy our brand value. But most importantly, we also build trust. Good governance builds a clear structure that improves accountability within the organization, performance, and trust within our organization, within our internal stakeholders, as well as our external stakeholders. So the key thing here is to ensure that we have a clear role for ESG at the highest level of leadership within our organization. I also like to mention here that out of experience, we engage with a lot of SMEs, and we find that quite a number of them do not have, boards or advisory committees. And perhaps it's perceived as something that is a good to have for large organizations. But some of these do not actually attract costs. You have people who are willing within your stakeholder networks to advise you on specific issues. So it is always good to always invest in setting up an advisory board at the very minimum, guide some of the discussions that, some of the decision making that is being made by the highest office within our organization. So next, I'd like us to go through priorities and business value, why this is important for our businesses. So there's a difference between ESG and CSR. And we started off with this point to say that there is a fundamental shift from how we used to do business before, which was we want to impact positively on our community. Let's go and paint a school, or let us go and buy books. And those are good things to have. But the nature of them is that they are philanthropic and they're stand-alone projects, not necessarily tied to the business operations. And as we apply the ESG framework, which is the framework for this decision making, you would see that there will be a lot more deliberate thought put into how are these actions aligned with our strategy, how do they manage our risk, and how do we integrate them through our operations in a sustainable manner. CSR is primarily voluntary, and our ESG lens is something that responds to an external pressure that we need to respond to, be it from our customers or from our regulators or from our investors. The focus and impact also of CSR has a marketing lens, and there's nothing wrong with marketing for the marketing professionals on the call. But for ESG, you also apply a more data-driven, quantifiable focus, yeah, because we say the data is king here. Data is what allows us to access, sustainable capital, say sustainable linked loans, and we'll get into that later on. But also the stakeholders that we look through from a CSR lens versus an ESG lens are also different, because from an ESG lens, we are looking at how we can positively engage with our lenders, our regulators, and our supply chain beyond the community and the public relation stakeholder lens. You need to say something more?
No, I was supposed to take over.
Oh, goodness. Okay, great. So I'll just hand over at this point. I think I got carried away. So I'll allow for Ivonia to come in. This is a topic that we're completely passionate about, so we're trying to find about who has the right now. But welcome, Ivonia. Please take us through the common myths as we go forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. I think to this point, you have gotten to understand, ESG as broken down by Steve, and we are just getting to the area where we are debunking ESG or sustainability, and also separating it from CSR. As you say, CSR, of course, it focuses on philanthropy, as we've agreed, and community projects, but then there's a lot more to, your organization's sustainability journey apart from CSR. So these are the common myths that we see or we hear within sustainability. And in the first myth is that ESG only applies to large listed companies. But in reality, ESG expectations are spreading throughout the value chain. Even SMEs are increasingly being asked for ESG information by the banks, the exporters, the multinational customers, and also procurement teams are increasingly keen on sustainability. And then the second myth is that organizations can wait until the regulations are fully enforced or become mandatory in 2029, for example. And we can see that Uganda's ISPAO has a roadmap that starts voluntary reporting or adoption from 2026 and phases is mandatory, and there's mandatory adoption as from 2028. So rather than wait when the enforcement is in place, the earlier you start, then the cheaper it gets for you as an organization. Then the third myth is that ESG is too technical, yeah? But it isn't really. If you look at ESG, it begins with very practical business records. For example, electricity usage, you're looking at waste handling, fuel consumption. These are day-to-day activities and day-to-day resources that the organization uses. How do you manage your suppliers? How do you adhere to the governance policies? Do you have them in place? So it is in the day-to-day, very practical business records. So it doesn't have to be a technical topic. And last but not least is that ESG has profitability. So that is a myth because ESG initiatives actually improve profitability. How? Through lower financing costs. You're looking at energy savings, of course, operational efficiency, and also reduced legal exposure when you are actually on the right path and improving on your customer retention. So ESG should not be viewed as a cost center alone, but it is increasingly becoming a competitive issue. It is a strategy that's not a nice to have, it's actually a very key business strategy. Next slide.
There's an interesting question here. Maybe I can respond to before moving to the next slide from Christine. Why is ESG a big issue now as compared to 15 years ago? What was the shift? My initial thoughts to that, and we'll also discuss it as we go along, is that risks are more visible now. When we think about the way the world is changing, the way we say the world is becoming a global village, a lot of the impacts of what we do is becoming more visible. Talk about climate change and the 1.5 degree targets that's being set. We are seeing now the effects of a non-deliberate approach towards how we manage this world that we are being given and the people that we work with. There's a lot more information now around how the previous practices have been affecting both people and planet. And that's what informed this shift. Really, it is just looking at the hurricanes that are happening, and scientists saying these hurricanes are happening because we are sending too much emissions to the sky. So those are it is science that is informing all of this, and the science is what has really changed the visibility of the impacts of what we do, and the recognition, and we'll speak about it as we speak about Global Compact, the recognition of our role as businesses to slow down the negative impact that we have on both people and planet. I hope we have answered the question, Christine. Next.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Sorry about that. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that organizations make is trying to address every ESG topic at once. And this approach usually leads to confusion, it will lead to wasted resources, and also weak implementation. So this slide here introduces that concept of materiality. And I'll start by defining what materiality is. Materiality is simply identifying the ESG issues that matter most to you as an organization, how your business performs, and also to your stakeholders. So with that, this matrix helps your organization to prioritize what issues are more concern, or what issues actually affect the businesses inward and also affect your value chain. Now, the issues in the upper right corner, they are those of highest priority. So you map down the core ESG priorities. And if they are in the upper right corner, then that means that your action needs to be as soon as yesterday. So these matters are matters that are strongly affecting your stakeholders and also affect your business performance. Example of issues that can, that can be in that particular corner, you're looking at maybe energy costs, reducing on your energy costs. That means then you have to actually understand your energy consumption, or rather you have to understand your emissions in order to reduce on that. If you're looking at worker safety, if that is a priority, then that's something that you need to put in place. Is it more trainings that you have to put in place? Is it incident logs that have to be in place? There are various items that you need. Now you find activities to actually mitigate the different metrics that you've identified there. Is it water usage, corruption risk, or is it supply chain traceability? So you look at that. But the key message here is most organizations just focus on roughly 5 to 7 major ESG topics. Don't include the whole 30, don't include the whole 17 SDGs. Identify which ones are most or immediate priority, and then that way you develop over time. And just to retaliate is that ESG maturity develops over time. It is a journey and it is not a destination. Now let's discuss why ESG matters commercially. Yeah. So first, of course, lower cost of capital. So financial institutions increasingly provide sustainability-linked loans, and also where companies are demonstrating, verified ESG projects or initiatives, then they are at capacity or at a position to actually access these better financing terms and also lower interest margins. So this is a proven. I believe identify, or rather your finance can identify the different institutions, the financial institutions, and just check on the sustainability linked loans. And of course, the sustainability linked loans are pegged to sustainability projects or sustainability initiatives within the organization, which this makes business sense because you don't end up spending a lot on the cost of capital. Second, when you're looking to market access, so the export buyers, and especially those in Europe, the global supply chain, they are increasingly demanding evidence of responsible sourcing, traceability, labor standards, and also environmental compliance. And organizations that are unable to actually provide this information, they risk of losing those contracts. Thirdly, we're looking at energy efficiency gains. Many companies can achieve 10 to 30% in cost saving, operational cost saving through low cost efficiency improvements. For example, LED lighting, something that is very doable, right? You're looking at, when you speak of motor optimization, are we going hybrid? Are we doing electrical and all that? Fixing compressed air leaks. Do you have a process where how frequent or how fast do you detect leaks, and how fast is the action taken to fix the same? When you're looking at generator inefficiencies, how do you go about reducing the same? So there is that possibility in just reducing within the portfolio that you already have. You are able to actually make 10 to 30% in cost savings. Lastly, we're looking at risk mitigation. Strong ESG systems, they reduce a lot of risks. When you're looking at the litigation aspect, you are able to reduce on the same operational disturbance. What did I say about incident records? When you've identified, for example, that you have an incident log and you identify that there are many logs, then you put in place measures. When there are, for example, in those in factories like Clapton, if there are any accidents that happen, if there are any accidents that happen, that means that is time off for the employees that are exposed. And what does that mean? That means that there is going to be either another worker who's doing double or who's going to be paid double for the work that is being handled because of someone else missing. So there are workplace accidents; those are a risk as a factor for businesses to consider. So ESG is not about compliance; it's not about reputation. It directly affects your profitability, your resilience, competitiveness, and also the risk factor in financing. So one of the most common ESG initiatives is unclear, common reasons we get, it's unclear ownership. Yeah? Who owns ESG or who owns sustainability? Sometimes ESG is assigned to only one department, and other times everybody is supposedly responsible. And what that means is that nobody truly is, yeah? So successful ESG implementation, it requires very clear roles. At the board and top level management, what is their role in terms when it comes to ESG or sustainability within the organization? At the board level, they are tasked with leadership to provide oversight, to provide accountability or ensure accountability, and also provide strategic direction. At the executive and management level, ESG is integrated into the business strategy, into budgeting, into how you allocate your resources, and also how you set targets for each and every employee. At the practitioner and also operational teams level, they come in when they handle the data, the implementation. So with the implementation, they need to collect the data. You need to have the technical teams have this data for reporting purposes. And that is also something that they are tasked to do. And then there's also the external stakeholders. They are a part of your ESG journey, and they influence the ESG expectations. So these are the banks, the regulators, the suppliers, the buyers, employees, and also the communities that you serve. And here is where we usually find CSR as an act of philanthropy or social impact. So the important message is that ESG should not sit in isolation. It works best as a cross-functional business process. So then, what does the market or regulators expect? So businesses, you're increasingly operating with, that convergence between local regulation, financial sector expectations, there's the global expectations. So there's a lot of trend. How do you go about it? So Uganda's ESG environment it's evolving, just like any other part of the country. And there are several frameworks that now shape how organizations manage sustainability and disclosure. When it comes to the National Environmental Act of 2019, it focuses on environmental compliance, waste management, pollution control, biodiversity, and environmental impact assessment. So what means that as an organization, you actually need to understand, for example, on the environmental compliance, do you understand your emissions? Yeah? Do you measure your emissions? Do you measure the waste that is produced? Do you identify how you treat the, say, water effluent? So that is actually upon you as an organization to ensure that you actually meet the National Environmental Act. Then there is the Climate Change Act of 2021, and it increases attention to greenhouse gas baselines. And here is where we're talking about the Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 emissions. What are they? Where do you start as an organization measuring? How do you conduct that baseline assessment? And then we also look at climate reporting and national climate governance. Remember, as a nation, they did set targets for the organization, and who are the implementers? Of course, it is the businesses. Then there's the ISPAO roadmap that is introducing IFRS sustainability disclosure standards in phases. And financial institutions are increasingly integrating climate and ESG risks within their lending decisions. So as a business, are you ready? Do you have the right documentation that is required of the regulators? The capital market regulators are also developing ESG disclosures. And as long as you're a listed company and your business you're a listed organization, then this is something that you need to adhere to. So beyond local regulation, there's also the international buyers that request some due diligence, traceability. Yeah? And this, of course, affects a lot of exporters and suppliers connected to the EU and the global market. But this is something that you need to be aware of. These are regulations that are coming at you. Are you ready, and how do you map out your journey on the same? So the key point is that the ESG pressure, it is not just coming from one direction. You can see all these, and this, I believe this is just a fraction of all the regulators. It's coming from various angles. So as an organization, what is the action that you're taking? And as we say, it is not a matter of starting all ESG metrics at once. Identify those material and work your way on your sustainability journey. Now, this slide shows that phased sustainability disclosure roadmap by ISPAO. And between 2026 and 2027, we have the voluntary adoption. And just to mention, the IFRS S1, S2, it looks at the financial disclosures in relation to climate. Yeah. So between that period, you have that opportunity to learn and put in place processes. Now, from 2028 onwards, the mandatory reporting will begin for public interest entities. And these are such as banks, listed companies, also other regulated entities. So the requirements will then expand progressively to include now the circles, the large organizations, the and eventually also the SMEs. So the important takeaway is that as an organization, you should begin preparing now rather than waiting for the mandatory deadlines. Preparation will include, governance structures. Are they in place? Do you have policies in place? Do you have risk mitigation measures in place? Do you have operational grievance mechanisms in place, etc. Look at your data systems. Do you have a way of measuring all the required metrics? Look at the internal controls and also the reporting processes, and lastly, the stakeholder engagement mechanisms. So organizations that prepare early will adapt more smoothly and competitively. Now, there are real business consequences for weak ESG performance. First, we're looking at regulatory exposure, and here non-compliance can trigger, enforcement action. It can trigger penalties, permit issues, and also that operational disruptions. So that is such a real challenge, and to avoid that, we have to ensure that we are actually on track. Second, we're looking at the financial risk. Banks that are increasingly, they're increasingly requesting on your ESG data. So if you do not have a proper ESG system in place, then you're delaying approvals for your own business, you're increasing the financial costs because then you are not viable for sustainability linked, units or loans and all that. You're also reducing access to sustainable financial products. And then the third is the contract loss. So export buyers, they are increasingly requiring evidence of your sustainability journey and processes. If you lack that, then of course that means that you lose on those contracts. Then there's also, of course, the reputational damage. All levels of stakeholders, be it customers, employees, and also investors, are keen on organizations that implement ESG within their practices. So with that, then you stand to lose a stakeholder trust, and also that public perception of your organization goes towards the negative. So the cost of ignoring ESG, it can become much higher than the cost of actually preparing for it. Now, these are some highlights from various sectors. We're looking at the agriculture and horticulture sector. This particular sector, you face a lot of ESG expectations. Why? Because the global buyers have increased their demands. You need to monitor pesticide use, water stewardship. How are you managing your water resources? And also there's the aspect of responsible sourcing. And then the practical actions that as an organization should do is map your farmers. Do you have any supplier traceability? What is the work safety measures that you have in place? And also that's overall environmental management. So climate resilience has become very critical for agricultural and supply chain. And if I can make it more practical, Lona, allow me to use Lato milk. So with Lato milk, you are a dairy processor and you operate within an agricultural value chain. So the ESG pressures comes from both the farmers and also the buyers. Correct me if I've steered off or I've veered off the right points. So for example, when buyers and lenders, they increasingly ask questions such as, where is the milk sourced from? Are farmers following safe veterinary and pesticide practices? Is water being used efficiently at those processing plants? How is waste and wastewater being managed? Are workers protected? Are they, trained properly? Can the company actually trace your products back to your suppliers? And then for a company like yourselves, then the practical ESG actions could include, mapping your milk suppliers and also the cooperatives to improve on that traceability. It could, it could be training the farmers on animal health, feed quality, and also responsible maybe antibiotic usage, or monitoring the water consumption to answer to that ESG issue, or the wastewater discharge at the processing facilities, how do you ensure that it is treated and released before it's released back into nature? Do you need to introduce cold chain facilities or efficiency to measure and reduce on spoilage and also energy waste? So those are maybe some of those ESG actions as an organization you need to take. So there is a strong business case. Strong ESG practices can help business within the agriculture, within the dairy processing sector, within the horticulture sector. When it comes to manufacturing, the ESG priorities often will focus on energy efficiency, of course, and with that, here is where now solar is, you'll find a lot of solar installation within manufacturing plants. Why? To reduce on their electricity usage, and in that case, that is their Scope 1 emissions. And we're also looking at around pollution control. That's quite a key ESG priority for manufacturing organizations. And with that, what are the measures that you are putting in place? Is it water treatment measures? Is it use of recycling in a sense that you produce steam that can be used for manufacturing and all that? Then we also look at occupational health and safety, very key in the manufacturing space, and also operational efficiency. So many manufacturing businesses, you find that they achieve significant savings through simple efficiency improvements. And just as we have said, that, of course, helps with employee morale and also just operational continuity. Now, when it comes to the financial services, this ESG increasingly affects, your lending decisions, your portfolio risk assessment, and also the sustainable finance opportunities. So banks are beginning to integrate climate and ESG risks. And from Uganda's, financial or business landscape, we're seeing the financial sector are being shaped by Uganda's Bankers Association, the ISPA. All these regulators are in place with that same direction. So for the sector, ESG is rapidly becoming a core risk management issue. By this point, of course, many of you know where exactly to begin. I hope you know where to begin. So how do you go about that? Step one is to assign ownership, very, very important. Name an ESG lead and also create a cross-functional team. And we actually advise that if you can have a cross-functional team across the different departments, that then it is sustainability or ESG is adopted at each and every department or aspect or level of the organization. Then step two is to build your own data baseline. And with that, when you compile the data, you're looking at the utility bills, the information is already there. The fuel records, you went to fuel, I believe you know how many liters or how much was spent on the same. You know how much waste was produced, measure that. Is there how many employees do you have, male, how many are male, how many are female, how many are at leadership levels? Then you're able to actually manage, I know where you're starting from, then you're building on from there. Then step three is, of course, reviewing the policy frameworks that you already have in place. And policies would be such as, bribery or act or policies, whistleblower policies, health and safety policies, supplier code of conduct, review those documentations, ensuring that they actually are aligned with the current sustainability practices. And then step four is conducting an ESG risk management or risk scan. So scan your top 5 ESG risks and what are the immediate controls that you have in place. When you have identified your most material risk, then you implement quick mitigation measures. Then last but not least is stakeholder engagement. Engage your lenders, your buyers, your customers to understand their ESG expectations and also the reporting requirements. The key idea here is progress over perfection. So what are the quick wins that you can start with this month? So organizations, you often assume that, ESG requires expensive projects. So these are some, low costs and very high impact actions that you can take as an organization. When it comes to energy efficiency, switch to LED lights or motion sensor lightings, or when it comes to leaks, switch to, there are also motion sensor taps. It will actually optimize on some of the operations or the activities that the energy that you release within the organization. When it comes to safety foundations, introduce PPE checks, and also that have trainings around safety and also how to act in terms of when challenges arise within your operations. And then on ethics and transparency, create simple grievance channels and ensure that it is actually known throughout the organization. Publish a basic ethics statement and also conduct trainings for employees or refresher courses around ethics and transparency. Then on data collection, very, very important and very key. Start having those logs. Is it for fuel tracking? Is it for energy consumption? How much were we built in power? How much did we purchase, or how much do you use in fuel? How many accidents occurred, and how long did that accident affect ABCD operations? So ensure that you have the right data metrics. It will help when it comes to reporting, and it also helps to give you that baseline. So you have where to start. So you actually have a baseline in which you can set targets for future performance. So how then do you build your ESG roadmap? So this is a phased journey. The first 3 months, focus on data ownership, baseline assessment, just as we have said, identifying the policy gaps, and you do that by reviewing. Then the next 6 months, you should begin on your energy audits, have those independent assessments, you have been tracking them. Data that is audited is much better than data that is not. And then also supplier mapping, ensure that you have documented your suppliers. You have 100 suppliers. You don't have to, map each and every supplier, more or less do a risk assessment on your suppliers as well. And identify now, out of those that you have conducted a risk assessment, which one are you starting, taking action or working on. When you also map your suppliers, you identify maybe women-owned suppliers against youth-owned suppliers, against men, women-owned suppliers. And then there's the staff training, very important. ESG awareness it becomes easier to implement ESG and sustainability when all your staff are actually on that same boat with you. Then, of course, start planning on your first report. Is it an impact report? Start at that point, or work towards your sustainability report. Then in the next year or so, publish your first ESG update. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sustainability is a journey. Then you are identifying the gaps, and you know what targets to set in the years to come. Audit actions that are implemented, and then also performance tracking. Very, very important. When you do those quarterly KPI reviews and adjustments, then you're able to actually do that. And then on the second year is now integration. You're ready. You've already had that chance to understand sustainability and you have identified where it aligns within your operations. So when it comes to IFRS S1, S2 disclosures, and it's mandatory, it's not something that you're writing about, but you already have it in place. You've integrated ESG into the budget. It's very important to do that, because then you are heading nowhere. Yeah, so ensure that you're actually budgeting for the same. Where external assurance is required, ensure that also that is catered for. And then, of course, sustainability is about continuous improvement. So it isn't simply a reporting trend. It is becoming, it has to become a part of who you are as an organization. How do you access finance? How do you manage risk? How do you remain competitive, or how do you maintain that market access? So an organization that starts early gets those advantages in good time. So it's, I repeat, progress over perfection. So I will welcome back Steve to take us through the UN Global Compact. Karibu, Steve.
Great. Thanks, Ivonia, for that very detailed deep dive. I hope people in the room are finding points that resonate directly within their business. So for those that are not familiar with the Global Compact, we thought to just very quickly go through who we are before we just open up for a quick Q&A so we can respond to some of the questions that are there. So for familiarity, Global Compact is coming up. We just passed 25 years old, and this started with an initiative that was launched by the UN Secretary General at the time, the late Kofi Annan. And this was on the sidelines of conversations where, it was becoming very clear that businesses were having a very significant impact on human rights, labor, anti-corruption, and the environment. And the proposal, the compact, the agreement is that business leaders own their responsibility to commit to shared values and principles that drive the world better forward. So what does this look like? We have a principle-based approach, meaning it's not abstract. It's anchored on the 17 SDGs, which we simplify for business action through 4 business pillars. So you have human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. And what you'll find is, as you look through the SDGs, one SDG relates to another and affects another. In the same way, we look at the 4 principal areas where you have human rights, is corruption. To say human rights versus corruption. Corruption affects human rights and their access to their rights. So what we propose, what we present to businesses, participants of the Global Compact, is a framework through which they can implement the 10 principles of the Global Compact. And they are anchored in UN declarations that have been made over time. So our work under human rights is governed by 2 principles, which is mainly to ensure that we are not complicit in our human rights abuses. And this is anchored in the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. So that's going to more than 60 years old, 70, 80 years old now. Our labor work is governed by 3 principles around freedom of association, work around forced labor, child labor, and discrimination. And this is anchored in the ILO Declaration for Principles and on Fundamental Principles and Rights of Work of 1998. Our work under environment, again, is under 3 pillars, which is looking at precautionary approaches to environmental challenges, promoting environmental responsibility, and encouraging environmental friendly technologies, and this is anchored in Rio. Anti-corruption, our single principle 10, works to support businesses to fight corruption in all its forms, including extortion and bribery. And here we work closely with the UN Convention Against Corruption. So this is the framework through which we support organizations to walk on the journey that Ivonia mentioned. It's not a destination, it's a journey. So it's through these 4 lenses that we look at businesses. We are a global initiative. So globally, we are more than 25,000 businesses that have committed to these 10 principles. So joining Global Compact is making a commitment that you will develop policies and practices within your organization that align with these 10 principles. 56% of these businesses globally and even in the region are SMEs. We have around 70 country networks around the globe, and here in Kenya we are the largest network in the region, in the Middle East, with about 300 companies, but also supporting you actively in Uganda. The primary benefits of joining Global Compact is access to tools And this is very, very important because the interactions that we have with businesses, we find that this is the biggest gap that businesses have. There is an issue about awareness, and awareness is fixed quickly through webinars and information sessions such like these ones. But how do you bridge from awareness to actually taking action? You need tools on how to integrate sustainability into your business strategy, and that is what we support businesses with. We also support through access to partnerships with a wide range of stakeholders, through the different programming opportunities that we present to our members. So be it networking events, conferences, workshops, peer learnings, accelerator programs. Through all of these programs, we're able to co-create solutions with you that are speaking directly to your businesses, taking both a sector and a regional, a sector lens, depending on what sectors you are in, but also a regional focus lens, such that we're doing things that make sense for East Africa, things that make sense for Uganda, things that make sense for Kenya, and things that making sure that we are very, very locally specific. So if I could summarize how we do this, is through our new strategy we started off this year and it takes us until 2030, which is our objectives is to support or equip companies to act, to equip you with tools and strategies on how you can make more ambitious goals so that you can start making progress towards the change we so desperately need to see. We support you in developing frameworks for collaboration to drive collective action. How do we work together with other businesses within our sector, within our country, within the region, across Africa and through the world to drive the issues that matter most to our businesses? And then beyond that, as we also did through this session at the beginning, is to always ensure that we are supporting businesses to understand the business case for sustainability, to show that it's not just the right thing to do, but it's a strategic imperative that has a positive influence on the bottom line of an organization. So the engagement opportunities we have are around 4 different pillars, and we call them connect, learn, lead, and communicate. So we support you to connect with experts like ourselves, experts within our UN ecosystem, experts from other organizations. On this call, we have more than 15 different companies. So how do we create connections that we can advance our commercial agendas, but also more importantly, collaborate and learn from each other on how we can drive more sustainable initiatives in our organizations. We engage also by providing opportunities to learn. And the learning is through our Global Compact Academy, which is open to all the employees of all organizations that are signatories to the UN Global Compact or participants of the UN Global Compact, where everybody can learn at an individual level, self-paced learning on their areas of interest with a sustainability lens, but also learning for the organization. How can we take the organization from one track, from understanding where it is today to where it is to be, and do that through accelerators. We also have peer learning engagements, or we structure learning from different organizations, and we'll be happy to have conversations with the UN Global Compact Uganda participants on how we can create structured learning sessions for yourselves, virtually or in person. Next is to lead. We understand that different organizations are on different points across a journey. Sustainability maturity is a journey. So how do we support organizations that are beginning to make that step, communicate what they are doing within their organizations, or organizations that have been doing it for a while? How do we support them in building the narrative that inspires other organizations to take action and lead this initiative from the front? Data is key. And all through what Yvonne has been mentioning is how do we actually capture what we are doing it and present it in a manner that first is credible, but also demonstrates the work and progress that we are doing towards our goals. So we have the communication on progress report, which supports Global Compact participants. It's aligned with all sustainability, global sustainability reporting frameworks like GRI and others. But it supports you in a framework where we can map from this year to next year to next year. How are we moving along this journey so that we can see progress towards our goals and our targets? Yvonne, I'd like you to take us through this particular slide.
Okay. So our joining is an easy 3-step process. One if you are not a participant of the UN Global Compact, then there's opportunity to join the UN Global Compact. And it's simply reviewing the application guidelines. What are the application guidelines? Are you on the UN sanction list? If you are, then of course that is a deterrent. We're also looking, are you deriving revenue from mining, tobacco, cluster of bombs? Of course, that is a company that would not be allowed at this point. So a number of you here today are actually on more or less the safer side of joining the UN Global Compact. You also need your business registration certificate in handy, because that's information that will be required at step 3. You also need to know how many employees do you have, because that's also information that will be required at step 3. Now, alongside that is that you need to prepare a letter of commitment. We believe that sustainability is, directed returning from the top. So your CEO needs to actually approve a letter of commitment, but this is done digitally, so it's not a physical letter. So when you go to that link, and we'll share it after this communication, you'll have an opportunity to actually, embed it at step 3. Now, the online application is an easy, information field process. Once you submit it, our global team would conduct some due diligence on the organization alongside us here locally, and then within a span of 1 to 2 weeks, then we can have you onboarded. Now, is it free to join the UN Global Compact? No, it is not. There is a cost that's pegged to joining the UNGC, and this is pegged on revenues. Quite reasonable revenues, really. Why? Because it goes to support the work that we do and the support that we offer to organizations helping you, grow on your sustainability journey. So it requires that commitment, both financially and also commitment to action when it comes to sustainability. How does being a part of the UN Global Compact relate to the existing Uganda regulations? Is that ESG complements and also goes beyond the current regulation, and that is the whole essence of what we do as UN Global Compact, to help you understand and unpack beyond the regulations in Uganda, beyond the regulations globally. Then with that, it becomes your way of life as an organization, and a very key strategy for your existence. I'm also taking this opportunity to answer more or less frequently asked questions that I'm thinking. Do we offer specific sector guidance? We do have maybe programmatic offerings along different sectors that we run from time to time, but we also look at our programming guided by the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact. That's human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. So even while you are in Uganda, we do have such sessions. We also have in person where we will be supporting virtually, but we can, what is it called? Convene at one particular agreed venue, and we support the rest of the sustainability programming support virtually. So that's also an opportunity. Additionally, we also welcome participants to Kenya. We also have Africa level activities that we can have companies join in or take advantage of, and even the global activities. That's it. We have
thank you, Ivonia. I think we have come up to the end of our session today. We trust that it has been insightful and shared some information that for you supports you as you embark on this ESG journey. Like we mentioned, this was a beginner masterclass, and we tried to keep it clear of a lot of jargon that's tied in sustainability. So we believe as we go across the journey, there are different things that need to be made aware to a different organization. And today was more of the basics. And then we have other sessions coming forward that deep dive into specific issues. So just to recap, and just to mention a few things about why this call was important. So World Bank does this thing they call the country index and other types of studies that they do on different countries. And there's a matrix that they have on looking at the vulnerability of different countries towards climate effects. And the data as of last year says that Uganda is the 14th most vulnerable country in the world to climate change. So that means that as this climate change manifests, be it in floods or be it in drought, 14th most vulnerable. That's a very high vulnerability. And we have how many countries in the world? Almost 200, like 190 something. Yeah. They also did a study and said within the same study that despite it being the 14th most vulnerable, is ranked 163 out of that 190 in its readiness to address those risks. And it's a very big gap that we are on this scale as a country as far as the risk profile is, and it's not corresponding to the readiness of the country as a whole. So here we're not just talking about private sector, we're talking about the entire country of Uganda. And that's why the Global Compact exists, because we know that businesses have a very key role to play in bridging that gap between our vulnerability and our readiness to act. And that's how we support through these different frameworks that we're talking about. The biggest gaps that were highlighted for Uganda fall within, areas of what you're seeing there as session 2, materiality, understanding what is material to an organization from a sustainability lens. What progress has been seen is that businesses understand the second side of double materiality, is called the financial materiality. So there is a drought or there is floods. This affects our supply chain and our distribution networks. Businesses are understanding that clearly. But where there's visible gaps is that there is less information on how to take action around impact materiality. What is the impact of our organizations? So now I'm beginning to talk the jargon that we said we'll keep out of this first session. But that's the approach that we are taking. We are coming in first to give you a framework through which we can now start building upon and creating the structures and conversations that need to happen within your organization. We'd like to open this up for questions. As we come towards a close, we've got 5 more minutes on the clock. So happy to take any questions and comments on how this session was. Did it meet your expectations? And even where you are or something that's happening within your organization from a sustainability lens. Feel free to open mic or type in the chat box. Yeah. Oops. What's happening?
Question, comments, feedback. Reality on the ground.
Yes, hello.
Go ahead, Alex.
Thanks for the insight. I'm Pius.
Yes, Pius.
I appreciate the entire presentation. It was clear and very detailed. So as far as Foundation Lead is concerned, we will make a follow-up so that we're able to be in touch. Otherwise, thanks to each one of us who have participated in this session. Stay blessed.
Thank you, Pius. Ronald, you want? Yes, Ronald?
Okay, I want to thank the UN Global Compact Kenya for such a wonderful presentation that I think is also a very big eye-opener to many organizations or businesses that are operating in Uganda. As one of the action points I think we can take away is, I know that some organizations are already doing something, but what you mentioned, the 14th most vulnerable country in one of the aspects, which is climate change, I think is a very, very big issue. That's a big red flag. if you compared with other other countries and how they operate. And no wonder we are still in the third world, classified as a third world country. We are not yet moving forward to a middle income status country because some of these aspects are actually still lacking. So the action point will be, is there where we can develop what we call an ESG assessment template or form, which can be addressed to the different stakeholders within an organization? Let's say at the top level, the way you had classified it, how does ESG affect the top management, middle managers, internal, and then external? So that we make an assessment of, say, different organizations that are interested, so that they can be able to see, if I take it to tier 1 to 4 or 5, they would be able to assess and understand at what level are they and what action can actually be required. Because when we mention it like this and we leave it to them, everybody, some CEOs will say, no, I think we're doing these things. But the issue is on ground. If you took ESG the way you've taken us through on all the different aspects, how are they in terms of environment? That assessment has to be done. Then when it comes to governance, and social aspects, what are they actually getting out of the 4 or 5 as scope, in case we are to put it, let's say, in an Excel template, and someone is giving us their honest answers. Now, based on the assessment, it can then be able to bring what we call next steps. So how do you close if on E, or environment, you're scoring 2.5, for instance? How do you then close to make sure you get to the 5, and what period do you require to get to a 5? And then you also mentioned very quick wins and things that we can start with in the first, let's say, 6 months, I think, which are very doable. But this all can be embedded in a template to make sure that it's flexible, it can be fed into in terms of information, and then we can really get real commitments now from organizations that have taken the assessment to see that out of the 5, I am actually 1.5. That is where I am. If I'm a 1.5, what actions do I take? And how can the UN Global Compact then handhold me to make sure that I push my agenda to a level that I want it? I think that's what I can be able to mention from my end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronald. That's a good point. Now we can hear from Alex, and then you can answer Twanko.
All right. Thank you, Stephen and Ivonia. I have a quick comment and one question. And my first comment is, while you guys were in Kampala last year, you indicated that the plan actually was to have the Uganda chapter launched, which hasn't happened as yet. We appreciate the support from the Kenya team, but I want to understand, what is it going to take for the UN Global Compact Uganda chapter to be launched? Is it a threshold of participants, companies, that you must raise a particular number of companies? And if that is the case, do you mind to give us some insight on where we are at, or how soon do we expect that the Uganda chapter will be launched? And my second question is about reporting. In line with the communication on progress that we follow through with the UN Global Compact, how does it relate with the other reporting frameworks like the GRI, for example? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions, Alex. Before I respond to them, I have a kind request, which is for Damaris, please, if you're on the call, just requesting for those that are able to just free up your camera so we can take one screenshot just as we share the communication by way of a photo. Damaris, would you guide us through that quickly as we dispatch our response?
Sure thing. So I think you're waiting for Yvonne to come back into the room. So in the interim, if people are in a position to put on their cameras, then I'll be able to capture the screenshot. Thank you, Mary. I can see you're already there. Is there anyone else trying to get my view? Thank you so much, Pius, Ronald. Hoping to see more. All right, just 1 second. I see more people. Alex, I think this is okay. Let me just take a photo of this. Thank you.
We know it's a public holiday, so people are not in their offices. We appreciate that. Thank you, Nathan.
Lovely. Christine, I see you. Let me just take another photo, please.
A dream.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you so much for indulging us. I'm good, Stephen.
Thank you, Damaris. Okay, great. So first question or comment from Ronald. Yes, we agree that action templates are very important for organizations. We have mapped that as, and a lot of these studies have been done, but that's the quickest way to get action moving forward within an organization, and also taking that deliberate approach to ensure that these are looking at the different levels within an organization. So we as Global Compact support the organizations by learning how to apply different tools, call them templates, at different levels as far as different issue areas are concerned. So let me look at, for example, an accelerator program like Climate Ambition Accelerator, which is just about to start towards the end of this month. So this accelerator program will take 2 participants from the organization through baselining and understanding where do we have the greatest, what is our materiality around climate. One and greenhouse gas emissions are we reporting is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Now we're entering ESG jargon. Are those relevant to our organizations? As they identify those, they are in constant communication with the leadership within the organization to validate the issues that they are raising. So say, for example, they could say, we are not currently measuring our GHG emissions. And they figure out, as part of the learning process, do you measure? It's a question, I suppose, do you measure your GHG emissions? So as they come out of the session, they go back to the organizations and engage with the leadership on how we can either start measuring or increase our measurement and interact with the tools that they are given through these different engagements that they will be having. So what you don't have is to say, here is an environmental checklist for the organization. But something that also supports that, and Yvonne might speak to it, is our communication and progress reports, because that in itself is a baseline. It tells you, it looks at the 4 different thematic areas that we've mapped onto all different SDGs. And it asks you questions like, how involved is your leadership in developing developmental policies? How many times does the organization conduct training for its employees within that organization, within the particular organization? So through this communication of progress, you receive a report. And later on, I think towards July or after July, we have a session that's dedicated to understanding your COP report, which actually just takes you through this is how you interpret the data, because now as you do the COP, you're capturing data. So how do you now make this data actionable such that by the next year that you're coming about, you have already made some progress towards 1 or 2, 3 material issues. And in part, this is to answer Alex's question on how does the COP map onto other global regulations like GRI and others. So what you have globally is a shared principle that needs to happen. So say, for example, we talk about climate change. There are principles on how to measure and report on your emissions. These are science-based initiatives. And the science that is used by Global Compact in its initiatives is the same science that is used by GRI in measuring the same factors. So we are all relying on one framework that is a shared principle of what needs to happen, just like the Sustainable Development Goals. That is a shared framework through which sustainability is made actionable by different stakeholders, be it business, be it private sector, public sector. Yvonne, do you have any comments towards the...
Yes, the COP, the Communication and Progress Report, is an annual accountability mechanism for those that do not know. And with this, we measure how you're operationalizing the 10 principles, as Stephen has mentioned, on human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption, and also governance. Now, this COP is it's created, it's improved, guided by all other reporting frameworks. So you'll find that there are reference points to GRI, to EFRAG, ISSB requirements, or TCFD and all that. So we do take into account the other reporting frameworks, so that one, of course, it reduces the reporting fatigue, and two, it also, it's a standard, sustainability markup reporting. Now, there's the data visualization that Steve has spoke about. With the data visualization tool, it helps you benchmark your performance against others in the sector, be it locally, regionally, or even globally. So, for example, you want to see how or what are the human rights topics that are material in my sector compared to maybe in Africa or globally. That's also an opportunity that's available with this COP.
Yeah, I think the key to mention there also is that by going through, because we apply different lenses, and you also have to, we apply sensitivity to the fact that the different regulations are informed by different objectives, but the underlying principles are the same. So what the COP tool is, as Yvonne mentioned, it's an accountability tool. By going through the COP, you are more prepared to, if by obligation of your business or by external pressure, you have to report against GRI or IFRS, you are better prepared to report on those different regulations with a COP, because the COP is an accountability tool. And that's why we keep talking about data. We support you all the way in ensuring that you can be able to track your progress. And should you have to report against different regulations, you have a baseline through which you have captured your entire organization, that you can just extract information and plug it into a different one. So it's not a substitute for the different regulations, but supports, or rather they work all together. I hope that answers the question. The next question was about Uganda network. So this has been an ongoing conversation, and really we did not hit critical mass. We need numbers of organizations that are willing to engage as participants, as paying participants, to support our in-person engagements within Uganda. So this has always been an ongoing conversation, and it's all about just how do we get more organizations coming on board. Some of the initiatives we're trying to do to support that are such like this one, where we are engaging with participants beyond the network, the Global Compact network, and opening it up to the entire country and businesses that want to engage and learn more about sustainability to generate that interest. But also we will have some discussions. Some discussions have been ongoing between some of the large organizations and SMEs within the Ugandan network to see how we can collaborate, bring the Ugandan participants together with other organizations on how we can create a louder voice in the market and get more interest from businesses, such that we can now have resources to set up that network. But it is primarily a financial sustainability decision to wait until we have, or work on building more numbers of companies joining the network. And that's why, if you saw in our strategy, we also had our third pillar, which is advancing the business case for sustainability. It's how do we communicate that more? And how do we also support you as global compact participants to engage with your stakeholders and your value chains and your supply chains to communicate the importance of having a sustainability journey partner. How many do we have numbers of how many companies we have? Yeah, so they're about in the 20s, and and a majority are SMEs. So we'd still be looking for others. But happy to have this conversation, Alex, in partnership with some other large organizations. We know this issue has come up, so we're happy to engage and see how we can lean on each other's strengths, and especially like your local footprint there to sort of broaden the narrative, and also work with partners like the Federation of Uganda Employers, sort of build that business case better for Ugandan countries.
Stephen, if I may, I have one recommendation, if you don't mind. I know there are a number of companies operating out of Kenya, Nairobi, that have subsidiaries in Uganda. And some of these companies are actually members of the Global Compact, the Kenyan chapter. How about if you guys approach them and interested them in having their local subsidiaries in Uganda sign up and join the Global Compact, because they are already benefiting. They know the benefit, the value of them being members. So I believe it would be a low-hanging fruit for us to try and drive the numbers for Uganda as well.
Yeah, those plans are underway. So we will report as time goes by. Yeah, and we hope that, of course, the majority that are represented here also, get to join the UN Global Compact and allow us to walk that journey of sustainability with you.
Okay, so we are at 11:44. We have taken 15 of your minutes. We apologize for that, but glad to see that we had conversations that could take us above the scheduled time. So, as mentioned before, we are really honored to have you here. We appreciate the time that you have taken today. Noted that it's not a work day. You have taken your time off to come and be with us and listen to this masterclass. It's a demonstration of your commitment to development, be it as an individual capacity or organization capacity. We appreciate you for joining us. We will share a recording of this call together with the slides that we had for your engagement post this call, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session that we will have. So we wish you a great remainder of the day, and all the best, and looking forward to seeing you, for those that are not Global Compact participants, joining in, and for those that are on different engagements. Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good.
Thanks and bye.
Bye. Thank you.